Everything is stressing me out, so I'm gonna go visit a really big tree. I have this cool spaceship, so I'm gonna get in my spaceship and go about 500 miles round trip to go see something on my bucket list. The world has really been freaking me out, and all I do is doom scroll the news. So, in order to get out of my head a little bit, we're just gonna go for a nice long drive. It's gonna be about 5 hours each direction, so the weather was absolutely lovely. I don't know about you, but I love overcast weather. I think it's relaxing. I would love to experience what is known as the overview effect, but you kind of have to leave the planet to experience that. So we're just going to put on a nice, relaxing audiobook to listen to on the drive.
Few were actually stoned to death by angry spectators. In most towns, hangmen, as they were most commonly known, were forbidden to enter a church. They were also banned from bathhouses, taverns, and other public buildings, and it was virtually unheard of for an executioner to enter the home of any respectable person.
Yeah, okay, so I'm listening to an audiobook about executioners in the 16th century. Whatever. You can judge me. I thought it was interesting. I haven't done a trip like this in about 4 years, but the last time during the pandemic when I was feeling a lot of existential dread, I went and got on an airplane and went to the Rocky Mountains National Park to experience that. It was also the first time I saw snow, which was awesome. So, traveling is always a little bit life-changing. Not always as much as you would want, especially when you're struggling with existential dread, but it's always good to get out there and experience what the world has to offer. So on this very long drive, I made like a donut out of my hoodie and put it on my dashboard, and then put my little camera right on the dash and just kind of hope for the best, or I kept it in my pocket. And honestly, most of the time I just filmed random things. I couldn't see the screen. I didn't know what I was doing. But, I got about 10 minutes of footage out of it, so I like a time lapse. Right now we're going through the Tejon Pass in Southern California. It's got a lot of Mack trucks moving stuff around. Very stimulating. But some people think California is beautiful. My opinion's a little bit spoiled because I've lived here my whole life, and to me it's just a big desert. So even if I am mostly just driving past farms and ranches, it's still nice to get away from the suburbs. About halfway through the trip, I had to stop to charge my spaceship. I found a coffee shop within stumbling distance. I'm not sure if this one's a roaster or just a coffee shop, but I was very excited that they had a vegan chocolate chip muffin for me to get. So it was nice to get out and stretch my legs a little bit before getting back in the spaceship and traveling the final 60 miles or so to the Sequoia National Park. This is the second oldest national park in the United States. It was established in 1890, about 18 years after the Yellowstone National Park, in order to protect the giant sequoias, which were being heavily logged at the time. Going back even further in history, for more than 1,000 years before that, the Monachi indigenous people lived in the area, and then we had European settlers come in and build log cabins. Some of those cabins still exist and you can go and visit them. One of them is actually built out of a fallen sequoia, which is pretty cool. Nowadays, this area is mostly campgrounds. The city just outside of the national park is called Three Rivers. It's got a really cool museum that you should go and check out if you're in the area. Unfortunately, I didn't make it in time, but I walked around the outside a little bit. Most notably, they have this really good example of dendrochronology, which is the study of tree rings. For the most part, you would be looking at tree rings to see how old a tree is. You would also be assessing different environmental changes, what the weather was like from year to year. There have been historians that were studying the Little Ice Age, and since these trees are so old, they would go to see how long that period of time lasted by checking the tree rings out themselves. Totally interesting, but there's all kinds of other historical stuff. There's a replica of a saloon, there's a bunch of older vehicles and like farming equipment that you can go and check out there. Apparently inside the museum is a lot of really cool historical stuff from the frontier era that I will have to go back and check out in the future. So now we're going to be heading from Three Rivers into the Sequoia National Park to go see the General Sherman tree, the largest by volume tree in the world. But I would like to state, just to make sure we're all on the same page, General Sherman is not the oldest tree in the world, nor is he the tallest tree in the world. It's still very impressive to be the biggest tree in the world, but I'd like you to understand what I mean when I say he's the biggest tree in the world. The tallest and the oldest tree in the world are actually both in California, which is pretty cool, but at this point in history, you are not allowed to go visit them. The tallest tree in the world is the Hyperion tree. He is taller than the Statue of Liberty, which is pretty impressive. He's about 500 miles away from the Sequoia National Park in the Redwood National Park, and unfortunately tourists have trampled the area around him, preventing any smaller ferns from growing. So as of, I believe, 2022, you're no longer permitted to go visit the Hyperion tree. And while I was learning about the world's tallest tree, I also learned about the world's oldest tree because it was pretty interesting. There are several trees around the world that are assumed to be over 5,000 years old, but there's only one that's been confirmed through coring. It's known as the Methuselah tree. The following pictures are a similar species of tree, but it's not that tree in particular because in order to protect it, his location is hidden. He's about 360 miles around the Sierra Nevada mountains in the White Mountains of Eastern California. He is a Great Basin bristlecone pine, which is a really weird tree. It grows in weird twisty shapes, and then it isolates sections above dead roots. So when you see the big twisty tree, only a percentage of it is still alive, and that's how it can survive thousands and thousands of years. Even older than the Methuselah tree was one known as Prometheus, who was cut down for scientific studies, and because of that, there's now protections on these trees. But I'm going off on a tangent. We are now going to talk about General Sherman, a Sequoia dendron giganteum, the largest tree by volume in the world, and the only one you can go visit. All right, just drove in a big loop. I feel like I'm like a mile away from the big tree. By the way, I bought a hat. Anyways, I am kind of not feeling great, and I think it's because of the elevation. So I'm gonna hydrate and see if I can walk to General Sherman from here. And indeed, they could walk to General Sherman from there. It's only a half-mile walk, but the elevation is so extreme that a lot of people were clearly winded already. Also, this was incredibly crowded. I don't know why I didn't anticipate that. So I'd like to talk about the scale of this tree. It's very hard to comprehend. So what you're looking at right now, there's a circular tile design. I didn't realize at the time I was there, but that's actually a replica of the footprint of General Sherman. I feel like that gives you a better sense of scale of how big he is. I think our brains just kind of go, yep, that's a tree. For me personally, I was overwhelmed by how many people were around me, so I need to go back again to check all this out a little bit more. But I do have one photo I took which gives you a really good sense of scale. This just looks like a real thick tree, but when you check out the person that's standing in front of the tree, really tiny down there, you actually realize how incredibly ginormous this guy is. As of 2013, he was measured to be 56,000 cubic feet in volume, and every year he grows another large tree's worth of tree. So he's totally fenced off. You can't go touch him, but you can go over to these guys known as the Tough Twins and take a photo with them, which is pretty cool. It turns out a lot of trees are actually twins or triplets. They all kind of grow around the same time after a small forest fire, which clears the area, and it also dries out the pine cones up in the sequoias, so they all fall around the same time, which is something really interesting that I didn't know previous to this trip. After walking down to the twin trees, I got to walk a little bit closer up to Sherman. There were quite a lot of people around, so I had a little bit of a hard time filming it, but it is quite majestic seeing such a ginormous tree. I won't lie, my original intention was to go hug him, and that is not an option, but I did get to sit on a dead branch of his. Back in 2016, this huge branch, it used to be his biggest branch, fell off into the path, and now you can go sit on it. But you can see the color of his bark, and when you look at the branch that I'm sitting on, you'll see it no longer has that bark. That is from people touching it. And people graffitiing it, which kind of sucks. So that actually made me really thankful that we're not allowed to actually go up and touch him, because that would be very sad. But I didn't get to hug the living tree, but I got to sit on top of the dead tree. This branch is huge. It is thicker than I am tall, which is mind-boggling. It's the size of an entire other tree. One of the plaques pointed out that looking up at General Sherman is the equivalent of a mouse looking up at a human. So just think about that. That's crazy. I also learned a lot of, sobering facts about forest fires. As mentioned previously, forest fires are actually a big part in the sequoia's life cycle, but recent forest fires have been so severe they have to wrap the trees up in foil to help prevent them from burning. The Tough Twins I just showed you, one of them had a healed fire scar and the other one didn't. The most recent fire was in 2021, and driving up to the national park, you could still see a lot of that devastation. So it's a little bit spooky that these guys are susceptible to climate change. And besides just fires, the rising temperatures make earlier snow melts, which affect the trees, and the bark drying out causes them to be more susceptible to something called bark beetles. So these guys are very old, very strong, but also quite delicate. I'm really thankful I got to go experience them, and I hope they get to be here for thousands more years. But part of me is not super hopeful about that. But let's just knock on wood, knock on the wood of my desk, because goodness, do I hope these trees stay standing. I'm very thankful I got to go experience this. General Sherman is 109 feet tall, or 33 meters. Around the base, he is like 36 and a half feet, or 11 meters across. His uneven shape is caused by fire scars over the centuries. He really was a majestic sight to see, but in general, this national park was incredibly beautiful. There's so much more to go explore and see. There's a fallen sequoia log that you can drive through. There's the log cabins. I would definitely come back to spend more time here. Unfortunately, it was a relatively quick turnaround for me. I just wanted to get out in nature a little bit and see what this area was like. When I left the Sequoia National Park, I went back to Three Rivers to get myself a coffee and a little snack before I got back on the road. It really is a cute little town. I'm really happy that I got to stop by and try a couple new coffee places and see what it was like. I would love to go rent like a cabin and spend a few days up here, but there were way more people around than I expected. So I might come back in a little bit more of the off season. I'd love to see this area snowy, but getting to sit by a river, getting to enjoy a coffee, getting to see some green trees and just breathe some fresh air was really nice. But now it's time to drive back to Los Angeles and reflect on life. So thank you very much for checking this video out. I hope you get to go out and explore the world some very, very soon.